这些不做的你们就做的么能进步，那叫大个大人咱都是么都东北的这讲那给想的。那真是我这里人口增加和推进上了一浪，你们碰着着了，所让的工地多半跑了新界路。
The unsurpassed, profound, and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in billions of aeons. I now see it here to receive and uphold it, about to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning, to liberate all beings, thus generate the supreme bodhicitta. Let's continue with our class on the Surangama Sutra. Currently, we are talking about the experiences and the stories of the realization of 25 great disciples of the Buddha. Previously, we've already covered the stories of the 5 roots and then the 6 objects. And then we still have the 6 consciousness and the 7 great to cover. By now, we've already studied the stories of 9 venerable disciples of the Buddha. Each of them explained the situation and their experience of attaining realization. Today, we will look at the 10th disciple. He mainly explained about his realization from the angle of body. The body as the root, not the consciousness. His name is Pilinda Vatsa. Pilinda Vatsa's name means leftover habits. Why is he named in such a way? It is because this name represents the fact that he still carried with him many habits from his former lives. In his past life, he had been reborn as Brahmins for 500 years, for 500 lifetimes. For that reason, he carried the habitual tendency of arrogance. Also, he has some miraculous powers. For example, at the time of crossing over the Ganges River, he was talking to the water spirit, saying that, "You, my little servant, please stop the flow." And then the water spirit was not happy with that at all. So the water spirit went to Shakyamuni Buddha, and then Shakyamuni Buddha also scolded him by telling him that you should not be arrogant. And out of his habitual tendency, though he went to apologize to the Ganges River spirit, but he addressed him again by saying that, "Little servant, do not be angry. Do not have aggression." Even after being scolded by the Buddha, he still carries this habitual tendency. Also, some said that the spirit of the Ganges River used to be his servant in the past life. That is how the 2 sentient beings conversed in such a way. Both carried on their habitual tendencies from previous lives. Anyhow, his name basically represents the fact that he still carried with him many habits from his past life. Pilinda Vatsa arose from his seat, bowed at the Buddha's feet, and said to the Buddha,
向佛的这个双足下进行顶礼，然后呢就是恭敬拜佛，就是说我最初这个
When I first left home to follow the Buddha and enter the way, so when I first renounced from family life and then followed the Buddha and then studied the Dharma with the Buddha, I often heard the Thus Come One explain that there is nothing in this world that brings happiness. There's nothing to be happy about in this world. As you know, that everything in this world is of suffering, is of empty nature, is without a self, and is impermanent. So, whatever we see as happiness, in fact, are not trustworthy, they're not stable, and they would eventually decay and destruct. So the Buddha often told me that there is no happiness in this world. And then he continued to tell his story. Once when I was begging in the city, I was reflecting on this Dharma door, on this Dharma teaching, and did not notice a poisonous thorn on the road until it had pricked my foot. My entire body experienced physical pain, but my mind also had an awareness. Though it was aware of strong pain and recognized the feeling of pain, I knew that in my pure heart there was neither pain nor awareness of pain. While Plintavatsa was walking to the city and begging for alms, he kept on contemplating on how there is no happiness in this Saha world, and he was contemplating upon the suffering and emptiness as well as no self, all of those kinds of teachings. Maybe because he was very much focused, without paying attention, a thorn pricked his foot. She's looking at me with some heartache. It's fine, I'm fine. Not sure what's happening with his body. Well, his body endured lots of pain. At that time, he started contemplating this pain originated from being aware of it. And this awareness of pain, though indeed is the painful sensation within conventional feelings. Though conventionally the vividness of pain is present, however, after making further observation, in fact, at that time, in the pure original enlightened mind, there was no pain or any awareness. Though that the pain as an object can be observed, but there is no solid existence of the feeling of pain, nor the solid existence of the subject that feels the pain, which is awareness. So there was neither pain nor awareness of pain. At the time of making observation of some painful experience, whatever happened to cause that pain, a needle prick or being cut by a knife or sharp object, there is pain. But when you make the observation, the pain, in fact, simply manifests in conventional truth, but the mind that makes the observation of it cannot be found. Neither of those can be found. So at that time, he said that I also thought, is it possible for one body to have two awareness? Having reflected on this for a while, my body and mind were suddenly empty. After 21 days, my outflows disappeared. I accomplished arhatship and received a certification in person and a confirmation that I had realized the level beyond study. So after he made contemplation again, thinking that if the pain mainly comes from this body, well, if you have not attained realization of emptiness yet, then wherever you go, you would carry pain with you. According to the Tattva Siddhi, it says that the body is the cause for suffering. As long as we have the body, then we will hold the cause of suffering. Also, wherever this body travels to or goes to, the perception of suffering would be existent. So wherever we would go, we would carry this cause of suffering and suffer because of it. Some people feel that, well, as long as I am in Larungar, my health is not that great. I don't have a primal situation to feel better. If I were to go to Chengdu, it would be better. But maybe your body will suffer more from illness or pain if you were to go to Chengdu, and maybe go to other places might be better or not. As long as our mind have not attained realization, the suffering will also continue, will not be interrupted. As long as we do not attain realization, there will be all kinds of pain associated to body. So as long as it is to say, as long as we carry this vessel of suffering, then we would suffer from it. As the body is the vessel of suffering, the condition of suffering, the root of suffering, we should contemplate it in such a way. At the time of contemplating, the mind that feels pain and the sensation of pain. So Palindavata kept on practicing in such a way, and not long after, all of a sudden, the sensation of pain and his body all became empty. He abided in his realization and protected this realization, as it is often said in the Zen tradition. So after practicing for 21 days, all of the outflows were purified, and he attained arhatship. And then the Buddha himself certified him and verified his realization, which is the fruition beyond study. And then in the sutra it says that the Buddha asks about perfect penetration. As I have been certified to it, purifying the awareness and forgetting the body is the superior method. So the pure awareness, purifying the awareness, and forgetting the defiled body and mind is the superior method. Because right now, our body is the condition to suffering. If we were to recognize the nature of it, which is pure, then it can become the cause to attain realization. To Palindavata, the body, the purifying awareness and forgetting the body is the most superior method. Sometimes when we, by accident, encounter certain pain or suffering, such as prickled with the thorn. My foot was prickled with a thorn, but I haven't attained realization because of it. I am still feeling a sense of pain. So sometimes the pain could become a cause to come to realization. This is the 10th one. Now let's look at the 11th one, which is by relying on the mind consciousness. This is the story of Shubhati. Shubhati's name means born into emptiness, because at the time of birth, Shubhati's home, within his household, lots of the provisions just vanished, and everything suddenly became empty. His family members being quite terrified, so they invited a fortune teller to foretell what happened with all the signs. And then the fortune teller was very good and told the family members, saying that, in fact, this baby would be quite auspicious. The birth of this baby would be quite auspicious. And that is why he was also called good appearance. So Shubhati is considered as the foremost in understanding emptiness. The Diamond Sutra was the teaching that the Buddha gave mainly to Shubhati at that time. Shubhati arose from his seat, bowed at the Buddha's feet, and said to the Buddha, "From distant kalpas until now, my mind has been unobstructed. I remember as many of my past lives as there are sands in the Ganges River. From the beginning, in my mother's womb, I knew emptiness and tranquility to the extent that the 10 directions became empty, and I caused living beings to be certified to the nature of emptiness." So after he stood up from his seat and then prostrate to the Buddha, he said that ever since the beginningless time, from distant kalpas, for many lifetimes, my mind has been unobstructed, and I can remember many of my past lifetimes, as many as there are sands in the Ganges rivers. And then I knew emptiness. So from the beginning, in my mother's womb, I knew emptiness and tranquility. Ever since I was in the mother's womb, I knew emptiness. Unlike us, after we were born and then we grew up, even our hair are so gray, and we still do not know what emptiness is. But look at Shubhati. He already attained the understanding of emptiness and tranquility when he was still in his mother's womb. And then he continued to say that to the extent that the 10 directions became empty, and I caused living beings to be certified to the nature of emptiness. All the dharmas of the 10 directions are simply of emptiness. Everything from the 5 aggregates to the external phenomena and extends to the 10 directions. All of the phenomena are of the nature of emptiness. Not only he knew emptiness himself, he also caused the sentient beings, lots of beings, to be certified to the nature of emptiness as well. If you remember the story that after Shakyamuni Buddha descended from Tushita heaven to human realm, at that time Upalabhana Bhikshuni was adorned with all kinds of beautiful garments and then went to receive the Buddha. However, Shubhati kept on meditating and practicing in a cave, so he didn't really physically go and receive the Buddha. And then later the Buddha said that the Bhikshuni Upalavana did not see the real me. She saw my form, but not the real me. But Shubhati saw emptiness, therefore he saw the real me. And then Shubhati continued to say that having received the thus come once the revelation that the enlightened nature is true emptiness, that the nature of emptiness is perfect and bright, I attained arhatship, and suddenly entered into the thus come once sea of magnificence, bright emptiness. With knowledge and view identical with the Buddha, I was certified as being beyond study. In the liberation of the nature of emptiness, I am unsurpassed. At that time, he attained the realization of emptiness, and awareness is non-dual. So in that realization where emptiness and luminosity is in perfect union, he attained that understanding. He understood that emptiness and luminosity is all pervading. In that realization, he naturally attained arhatship. Now, Shubhati is considered as a realized one in the Mahayana tradition. Sometimes arhat, which means the one that destroyed the foe of afflictions, in fact, means that the one that destroyed the afflictions of the three existence and endowed with all kinds of qualities. So there are the Hinayana arhats and the Mahayana arhats, but the true great arhats is the Bhagavat, the Buddha. Sometimes the bodhisattvas are also called the arhats. In the Abhidharma, it talks about there are the practitioners that had already attained the stage of no more learning. Those kinds of practitioners are also called arhats. So Shubhati at that time, he said that he had already attained arhatship and come to the realization that is identical to the Buddhas, that is precious, luminous, empty, that is ocean-like. So this is a realization. His view is identical to the Buddha's view. This is, of course, from the aspect of eradicating afflictions and attaining the realization of emptiness. According to some commentary, it says that the view is the same as the Buddha, is as identical to the Buddha. At the time when we studied Madhyamika, I think we studied that some of the schools talks about or argues that at the time of attaining arhatship, the realization is identical to the Buddha. There is no difference from the emptiness aspect, though that there is differences from the manifestation aspect. Some also said that Shubhati had attained Buddhahood long before he manifested as Shubhati. His name was the Blue Dragon Tathagata. So after he attained the realization, at that time, in fact, it was identical to the Buddhas, which signifies that he attained the Buddhahood and attained the fruition of no more learning. So he already liberated from afflictions and attained the realization of emptiness. And he became the foremost in understanding emptiness out of all the disciples of the Buddha. And then the Buddha asked about perfect penetration. As I have been certified to it, all appearances enter into nothingness. Nothingness and what becomes nothingness both disappear. Turning dharmas back to the void is the foremost method. If the Buddha were to ask me what's the cause for the perfect penetration, then according to my personal experience, it is that as I have certified to it, all appearances enter into emptiness. In fact, nothingness and what becomes nothingness both disappear. It is not a simple emptiness. And then at the end, turning dharmas back to the void is the foremost method. So after turning back, whatever kinds of dharma it is, the form or the emptiness, or form and emptiness both, or neither form nor emptiness, in fact, they are simply empty. That is the great emptiness. The mind, the root of mind, the object to the root of mind is Dharma. So at the time of attaining realization that all are simply empty, he then realized that mind is the foremost or the most supreme method to him, because he attained realization of emptiness by mind. Each of the noble disciples relied on various kinds of methods to attain realization. Now let's look at the next. Shariputra arose from his seat, bowed at the Buddha's feet, and said to the Buddha, "From distant kalpas until the present, my mind and views have been pure. In this way, I have undergone as many births as there are grains of sands in the Ganges. As to the various transformations and the changes of both the mundane and the transcendental, I am able to understand them at one glance and obtain non-obstruction." Shariputra, as you know, he got this name because of his mother. He was renowned as the foremost in wisdom. At the age of 8, he already was proficient in the 18 great studies in India at the time. When he was still in the womb of his mother, he had great wisdom too. His mother Okay, so Shariputra arose from his seat, also prostrated to the Buddha's feet, and then said to the Buddha, saying that from distant kalpas until right now, my mind and views have been pure. In the next part, it seems that the consciousness of the eye, consciousness of the ear, of the nose, of the tongue, those are all have something to do with the 6 roots. However, this part describes the attainment of realization more from the mind's aspect or the consciousness aspect, because the root is our physical body. The physical body cannot attain realization. So the 6 roots, consciousness, is related to our mind consciousness. If it is not related to consciousness, then the eye itself cannot attain realization. It is really attaining realization from the mind, not from the eyes. Similarly, it applies to the ears and the other roots as well. But those kinds of organs do have correlations at the time of coming to realization. However, at the very end, after coming to the realization, it is from the mind or the consciousness aspect. Now let's look at the eye consciousness. He said that, well, from the beginningless time, his consciousness, his habitual tendencies is quite pure, and his mind is quite pure. He's unlike us. Our eyes are not pure. Our eye consciousness, usually our eyes would see things and then our mind would generate dualistic thoughts and wrong views. However, for Shariputra, whatever he sees, since his roots are pure, he doesn't generate any greed or aggression like we would. Whatever his eye sees, everything is pure. And whatever he sees do not bring him any afflictions to his mind consciousness, to his mental consciousness, rather would generate wisdom. So he attained realization by simply looking. It is because his eye consciousness is pure. For as long as the years, the numbers of his past lives in the sands of Ganges rivers, his eye consciousness and mind consciousness were purified. And at the time he sees the different changes of the mundane and transmundane, including the the birth and death, the changes as well as dwelling. He attained the nature of the Dharma without any obscuration. We would not be able to do that. In fact, it's very difficult for us to even come to the realization of others' characters, of other people's characters. But for Shariputra, as long as he sees whatever that is mundane or transmundane, he would be able to understand it fully. Unlike him, we would not be able to see other people's characteristics, even after dealing with them for a long period of time, or even if we were just to look at a vase for a long period of time, we would not be able to understand that it is impermanent. It takes us a very long period of time to see the nature of all phenomena. But for Shariputra, since he has the wisdom, he would be able to see and then see the nature of the things. In terms of his story of attaining realization, it says that once I met Kashyapa on the Kashyapas, the three brothers of the Kashyapas, on the road, and I walked along with the brothers. The names of Kashyapas were included in Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra. And then they spoke about the causes and conditions, and I awakened to the boundless of mind. At the time of making discussions of causes and conditions, he understood that everything arises because of causes and conditions and ceases because of causes and conditions. He attained that realization. But I think, according to Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra, the story is he heard the teachings, not really see the teachings with his eyes. When you get some more time, you can look into that translation again. Last year, when I was translating some of the Tibetan languages, I believe that there was one story, a story of a Brahmin whose name is Long Nails. He was indeed quite an amazing Indian scholar back then. It was when he debated with his sister, but kept on losing to his sister. He then thought to himself, it is not that my sister got more brilliant, rather it must be the baby that she has in her womb. So she vowed to study diligently and to get proficient in the 18 categories of knowledge that is quite prevalent and well known in India at the time. And he vowed that if he doesn't understand all the 18 categories of knowledge, he would not cut his nails. He made that aspiration, and people said, no, it's not possible for you to completely understand and attain the knowledge of the 18 great categories of teachings. But he was very diligent and has great wisdom. When he finished his study, he went back to his home to see his nephew. That's the name of the sister's son, right? His younger sister's son, his nephew. So after he went to his younger sister's place and tried to find his nephew and wanted to debate with his nephew, his sister told him that his nephew is at the Shakyamuni Buddha's place. And then this Brahman, at the time of debating to the Buddha on the teachings of Madhyamika and Prajna Paramita, he lost to the wisdom of the Buddha. At the time of listening to the debate between his uncle and the Buddha, Shariputra attained realization. And then this Brahma long nails decided to also take the renunciation vow in front of the Buddha, and then later he also attained the fruition of arhathood. Nagarjuna once said that this is the reason of the Buddha would expound on the teaching of Prajnaparamitas. It is because after listening to the Prajnaparamita teachings, even the heretics would be able to attain realization. The long nail Brahmin must also clip his nails later. Just talking about clipping nails, I remembered that I had the opportunity of clipping nails for Pontsog Rinpoche. Sometimes we would clip the nails for him, and sometimes we would shave his beard. And sometimes Pontsog Rinpoche appears to be sleeping, and if we do not pay attention, and then Pontsog Rinpoche would all of a sudden open his eyes and look at us. So we would get quite scared. Lots of things had happened when I was serving Pontsog Rinpoche. It is only after the passing of the Guru I realized lots of the things I should have been more careful and paid more attention to. This is how Shariputra attained realization. Over here it says that I followed the Buddha and led the home life. My seeing awareness became bright and perfect. I obtained fearlessness and became an arhat. Shariputra was non-Buddhist before he left the home life, before he took renunciation. It was after he left the home life, his seeing awareness became bright and perfect. He attained this realization and then obtained the fruition of arhathood, also gained the four fearlessness. The four fearlessness is in the common vehicle, the common vehicle for fearlessness. And then he continued to say that as one of the Buddha's elder disciples, so out of all of the Shravakas, he is considered as the elder disciple. And he said that I am born from the Buddha's mouth because Shravakas is the ones that attain realization through speech. So one can say that they're born from the Buddha's mouth. Transformationally, born from the Dharma. And then the Buddha asked about perfect penetration, as I have been certified to it, for the mind and seeing to emit light, and for the light to reach throughout knowing and seeing is the foremost method. The mind that emits light. So over here it means that let it be seen by the root of the eye or seen by mind. At the time of seeing, he attained realization, and then since seeing by the eyes is really seen by the mind, then the mind would emit the light of wisdom. So that is the most ultimate and the most pervading light, which is the true seeing of the Tathagata. So to him, the foremost is through knowing and seeing. Now we indeed quite very much rejoice the 25 disciples. And let's look at the 13th. The 13th is Samadabhadra. The universal worthy bodhisattva is Samadabhadra, arose from his seat, bowed at the Buddha's feet, feet and said to the Buddha, I have been a Dharma prince with as many thus come ones as there are sands in the Ganges. The thus come ones of the 10 directions tell their disciples who have the roots of Bodhisattva to cultivate the universal worthy conduct, which is named after me. Samantabhadra here says that I had been the elder prince of all the Tathagatas. Even in the aspiration of Samantabhadra, it says that all the Tathagatas has an elder son, and the name is Samantabhadra. So Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, in fact, is considered as the elder son of the Tathagata. Some of our fellow staff members would volunteer and serve a great numbers of different teachers. However, it seems that they would not be able to serve each of the teachers well. But Samantabhadra would be able to serve each of the Tathagatas and then attain the fruition of Bodhisattva in front of each of the Tathagatas. And so the Tathagatas of the 10 directions would treat Samantabhadra as a disciple, as the elder son. The ones with the virtuous roots, especially the Mahayana virtuous roots, would practice the aspiration of Samantabhadra. The 10 great aspirations of Samantabhadra is named after his name. It's named after Samantabhadra, the universal or worthy conduct. Not only Shakyamuni Buddha and the Tathagatas practice such kinds of universal worthy conduct. In fact, the Buddhists, let it be the Tibetan Buddhists or the Chinese Buddhists, all the Mahayana Buddhists, all practice this universal worthy conduct as well. All the different practitioners of various schools and sects would also practice this universal worthy conduct. And then he started expounding his various merits first. He said that a world-honored one used my mind to listen and distinguish the knowledge and views of living beings. In other regions, as many realms away as there are sands in the Ganges rivers, if there is any living being who discovers the conduct of universal worthy, I immediately mount my 6-tusked elephant and create hundreds of thousands of manifestations which go to those places. Although their obstacles may be so heavy that they do not see me, I secretly rub their crowns to protect and comfort them and help them to be successful. So here it says that Samantabhadra would listen with his mind. So listen with his mind here points to the ear consciousness, which is the perfect penetration. Therefore, all of the roots, the previous one which is the eyes, and then this one the ears, after all, they are very much connected to mind. So Samantabhadra says that I listen with mind, so that the sentient beings of the worlds of the 10 directions that has different views, their views can be heard. Their aspiration, the 10 great aspirations, would be able to be heard by Samantabhadra. It is because he has this mind, he would be able to hear the sentient beings of the 10 directions of the world, of the worlds of the 10 directions, and then he would ride his 6-tusked elephant and then go there and then grant them blessings. Because Samantabhadra has such a great numbers of reduplicated manifestations of his bodies, so he would be able to grant you blessings where you are, and you do not need to worry for Samantabhadra or to when you need to supplicate to the Guru. You can supplicate at all times. You don't need to worry that they would get tired from traveling around at all. So he, after manifested various duplicated bodies, he would be able to travel to the worlds of the 10 directions and benefit sentient beings. The great masters of the past pay great attention to the aspiration of Samantabhadra, and we had studied it once or twice as well. The content of the aspiration of Samantabhadra is really essential for us to chant every single day. When we have class, of course, we would chant this. Without class, I still hope that you can uninterruptedly chant the sadhana of Shakyamuni Buddha as well as the aspiration of Samantabhadra. In this way, your life would be very meaningful. Within us, there are people with the sharp capacity. They would be able to attain realization in this lifetime, even rainbow body in this lifetime. That is, of course, the best. Even if you can't do so, in this world, among such a large number of people, we had already received the teaching of the 6 syllables mantra, and we have the capacity to chant the Samantabhadra, the aspiration of Samantabhadra, and we can use the prayer wheels. And we can listen to Dharma teachings that's about 1 hour long, and we can chant for a long period of time. We chant all the way between 7:30 to 8, and then in the end we would chant the aspiration of Samantabhadra, which takes about 10 minutes. So if you can, even if you can't visualize very well, the merit is still not going to be in vain. I think that is, we should really consider ourselves as fortunate. I understand that we often would feel lots of suffering, that we have lots of afflictions and pain and lots of discomfort from the weather, from the food, from the reflections, and so on and so forth, which could be very good, because all of those discomfort and all of those conditions would be very helpful for you to generate renunciation. Without generation, how could you attain liberation? But on the other hand, you can't only look at the negative aspects all the time. For example, the other day we studied from Ponso Rinpoche when he said that at the time of death we need to contemplate up on our virtuous deeds and visualize the virtuous deeds as really grand, and to also contemplate our even the biggest mistake are in fact quite menial. That being said, do not get into the extremes of feeling too proud of yourself, and too much confidence could be arrogance. The other day I encountered a monastic who told me that who asked me whether she is an important reincarnation of a certain monastic, a certain monk, and I wasn't sure what to say. To some of you, I think it is important to cultivate some confidence. Do not focus only on the negative, thinking that I don't have good practice myself, and I do not uphold the most pure precepts, and you would only focus on the negative. But you need to look at the positive as well. Look at so many sentient beings in this dark age, and the majority of them have not even had the opportunity to listen to the 6 syllabus mantra. And we still have the opportunity to still study the Mahayana teachings and read the wonderful stories of the 25 great disciples and how they attained realization by relying on various objects or various routes. So even by that, we need to be more confident. And then Samantabhadra Bodhisattva said that, well, the sentient beings, though out of really great negative deeds and karmic obscurations, would not be able to feel that I bestow blessings upon them by touching their crown. At that time of chanting the aspiration of Samantabhadra, if you were to feel that there is a little bit of itch on your head, that's maybe Samantabhadra giving you the blessings by touching your head. This is the Vajra speech of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Even with our obscurations, we cannot see them, but they are constantly there to protect us and to console us, as well as grant us blessings by touching our head. By chanting the Samantabhadra's aspiration, we would be able to dispel our inner, outer, and secret obstacles, so that our practice would continue without any obstacles. I myself really feel that whenever there are any little bit of obscurations and obstacles, because of the blessings of Samantabhadra, I feel that at the end of each year, we would be able to fulfill the teachings. We would be able to perfect and complete the Dharma teachings according to plan. Of course, there are lots of the protector's blessings as well as the Buddha's and Bodhisattva's blessings, and there are people who can see it. Though maybe because of our obscurations are more loaded, we cannot really see the blessings from them. But as long as we would supplicate with great faith, then 1,000 rivers would be able to reflect the image of the moon in the rivers. So as long as we have faith, then the blessings of Samantabhadra can enter into our mind stream. This is quite important. To the disciples of Larongar, I think chanting the Tibetan version of aspiration of Samantabhadra could be a little bit faster. Just as a few days ago, many of you said that the Tibetan Umze chanted the aspiration of Samantabhadra way too fast. Pongsu Rinpoche instructed that the chant leaders should not chant too fast. If it was too fast, then it would be difficult to follow. The other day, when we had the ceremony, the parinirvana of Ali Midro, some of you told me that the chanting was too fast, but when I asked the Tibetan Lamas said that no, it was perfect. But I understand because the Tibetan language may be too fast for those of you who don't speak it. Anyhow, Samantabhadra over here says that I will bestow you great blessings and protections so that you can fulfill the 10 great aspirations of Samantabhadra. You need to remember that. I think many of you also chant this continuously for a long period of time. I myself, for example, I've chanted this for 30, 40 years, almost 40 years. Sometimes when I give teachings abroad, I try my best to fit the chantings into my schedule. Even if I can't, I try my best to make it up after.
然后就开始念，然后就白天的时间安排得很密的话，那早上起来就是边打哈欠
daytime is rather quite busy. My daytime schedule is very busy because I have to engage in the translation works. And then after, in the evening, it gets very late, and I would think to myself, oh, my schedule was too busy and I didn't get too much time to chant during the day, so I better finish my chanting by now. I'd better finish my chanting right now, so I would yawn and then finish my chanting. Reading the biography of the 8 great bodhisattvas, we can also see the qualities and merits of Samanabhadra bodhisattvas indeed really touching. I think by now that everyone should know. The Buddha over here asks about the perfect penetration. The basic cause I speak of in my case is listening with the mind to discover and distinguish at ease. This is the foremost method. Over here he says that at the causal stage, during his making of aspirations, he then said that he used his mind to listen. He didn't say that he used his ears to listen, he used his mind to listen. At that time, he reviewed the luminosity and then attained full freedom. Not only each of the great disciples and noble ones shared how they attained realization, they also shared how they benefited sentient beings. So to Samanabhadra, he mainly relied on the ear consciousness. Out of all, that is the most supreme method. Let's continue to look at the next one, which is realization, someone that attained realization through the nose consciousness. Over here, the Sundarananda arose from his seat, bowed at the Buddha's feet, and said to the Buddha, "When I first left home and followed the Buddha to enter the way, I received the complete precepts. But my mind was always too scattered for samadhi, and I could not attain the state of having no outflow." The Sundarananda was Nanda, but not Ananda. It's Nanda. But there are many whose name is Nanda. There is Ananda who mainly heard it, and then Ananda. Why over here his name is Sundarananda? It is because if Nanda's name was used, then it could be easily mixed. So Sundarananda, in fact, is a name after his wife, the wife before he left home, took the renunciation. I'm not sure if he'll be happy about that. In the Tibetan translation, his name was Nanda, but in the Chinese translation, his name is Sundarananda. I'm not sure what the Sanskrit version used to be. In the West, there's also the tradition saying that taking the husband's last name, Hillary Clinton, for example. Why would he still take his wife's name after he already took renunciation? But the Tibetan version doesn't have Sundarananda, it was just simply Nanda. Anyhow, after he arose from his seat, prostrated to the feet of the Buddha, and then started to address the Buddha by saying that after I left home life and then studied with the Buddha on the Dharma teaching or on the Dharma path, though that I observed the pure precepts, however, I encountered lots of difficulties. It is that his samadhi is not very successful because his mind would be very scattered. He probably constantly thinks of his wife or other things. It is similar to Canyang Gyatso, where he stated that while practicing in retreat, he couldn't visualize the face of Buddhas. However, the faces of the relatives would naturally appear. While his mind was distracted and not able to attain the state of having no outflow, the world-honored one taught Kashtila and me to contemplate the white spot at the tip of our noses. So Kashtila is the name of the long-clawed Look at our senior practitioner here. She's probably 80 years old and you turned it off, but somehow it is still turned on. Okay. Since you're a senior practitioner, I'm not going to scold you about it, but be aware of it next time. And then over here, the long-clawed Brahman, the uncle of Shariputra. At the time, the Buddha taught them that they should practice by visualizing a white spot at the tip of the nose. Nanda at that time he said that from the first I contemplated intently. After 3 weeks, I saw that the breath in my nostrils looked like smoke. When I inhaled and exhaled, my body and mind became bright inside, and I perfectly understood the external world to the point that everything became empty and pure like crystal. He said that at the very beginning, he visualized a white dot at the tip of the nose, and then it started to look like smoke when he exhaled and inhaled. This kind of appearance of white is the practice. This kind of form is, in fact, the visualization that is practiced by relying on the root of nose. The nose that uptakes the activity of inhaling and exhaling. With visualization, it manifested as a form of white. After practicing, for 21 days, he saw this air of when he breathes, because the air that we breathe in and breathe out cannot be seen by our eyes. So through his visualization, the power of visualization, while he inhaled and exhaled, he saw the form of the white color, and then saw the air that he breathed in and breathed out, this smoke-like air. And then he continuously to visualize the inside of the body and the consciousness of the body. or nose consciousness of the body. By relying on the nose consciousness of the body, he come to realization of the inner luminosity, which then became the great purity after it pervaded the whole world. And then he said that the smoky appearance gradually disappeared and the breath in my nostrils became white. My mind opened and my outflows were extinguished. Every inhalation and exhalation of breath was transformed into light, which illuminated the 10 directions. So it becomes the wisdom that illuminates the 10 directions. The illuminosity or the light that it talks about here is not the light of the white, red colors. It is not that. It is the light of wisdom pervaded the whole world of the 10 directions. And then he attained the arhatship. The world-honored one predicted that in the future I would obtain Bodhi. Temporarily, he had already attained arhatship, and then in the future he would obtain Bodhi. The Buddha asked about perfect penetration. I did it by means of the disappearance of the breath until eventually the breath emitted light, and light completely extinguished my outflows, which is the foremost method. At the times of practicing inhalation and exhalation, the signs of smoke of the white color manifested, and then everything disappeared, and then the luminosity of wisdom pervaded the whole of the space of the 10 directions, and the breathing became the luminosity that is perfectly penetrated. So to me, the foremost method of attaining realization is nose consciousness. It is because he attained realization by relying on the consciousness of nose. This is his particular experience. Let's stop here today.